Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Radix Strategic. Laura Hardin's journey into entrepreneurship began after watching communication teams struggle to do it all, supporting change management programs, managing employee engagement, handling mergers and acquisitions. You name it, she's done it. Laura started Hardin Heights Communications to focus on the things she does best, delivering information to the right people at the right time, using the right channel every time. Laura, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. I'm so happy to have you here, and I can't wait to jump right in. So let's just get right into it.
Great.
So you spent almost 25 years in corporate communications. What made you finally realize that starting your own company was the right move for you?
Yeah, listen, I wish I could say I had this giant epiphany and decided I was going to launch Hardin Heights, and it was a fairy tale transition. But in fact, I, like many people struggling out there right now, my position was eliminated, right? I accepted what I thought was my dream job. I was head of corporate communications for a manufacturer locally. It looked promising, and I was there about 18 months before there was a bit of a downturn in the financials, and through no fault of my own, they decided we went a long time without a head of corporate comms, and so we're going to eliminate your role. I then spent about 10 months looking for another job, and it was sort of the beginning of this bananas job market. And after looking and just not really finding a good fit, I said to my husband, I think I can do this myself. I'm going to try it. And the worst thing that happens is I apply for a W-2 job in 6 months, right? That's the worst thing that happens. Now, I don't believe in ever saying never. I don't never say never, and I never say always. But I got to tell you, Brian, I am never going back to corporate. I was born for this. I wish I had understood that the barriers to entry were a little more manageable than I had believed, because this is where I belong. And so it's fortuitous that it happened the way that it did, because I don't think I would have made the choice. But in fact, here I am living my very best life. I feel like it's a little bit of a second act in my career, and I'm really happy that things unfolded the way that they did.
That's great. It sounds like you're rejuvenated and you're living, and you have your purpose is to be an entrepreneur, and you do what you love. That's a
Yes.
great story.
Thanks.
Taking lemons and made lemonade out of it, so to speak, right? So
Yes.
that's incredible. So
Thanks.
you'd mentioned that, you, after some, considering and why did I wait all this time? So what was the thing? I mean, I know that you had the, unfortunate thing with your previous employer, but what was the thing that really kind of pushed you over the edge? Like, man, this can happen. I'm excited about it.
So I sort of had two aha moments during that 10 months of unemployment. Aside from the biggest one, which is I recognize I am nowhere near wanting to retire. Like, I was bored out of my mind within like 2 weeks. It was brutal. But the two aha moments, the first one happened when I started to look back at the things that I have done in my career, looking for, maybe this is something I could offer as a contract role kind of a thing. And I recognized that one project in particular, they brought in a contractor. This was while I was still at my W-2 job. They brought in a contractor to help with this employee company value campaign. And they paid this guy a lot of money. And listen, he was really good at what he did. And I was getting paid a salary, so I'm not complaining about that. But I did the legwork. Like, he and I worked together, but I did so much of the heavy lifting. And he was the contractor that sort of oversaw it all and handed off certain tasks to me. And I did some of the legwork, and then he presented it to the board kind of a thing. And I thought, man, if they were paying him to do this, I was actually already doing all the work. So I could do this on my own and go out and do it for other companies. And it sort of made me realize that I could strip away all of the peripheral things that I had to do in that role and just focus on the stuff I was really good at and I really loved delivering. So that was number one. The other aha moment, if you can believe it, came in a community pool parking lot. I was waiting to pick up my daughter from a birthday party. A friend of mine who is a really successful entrepreneur. He's got a couple of kids who are also very successful entrepreneurs. He walked by, we were chatting out the window while I was waiting, and he said, well, why don't you just do it yourself? And my initial response was, I just don't want to work that hard. Like, I don't want to be hustling for my next client all the time. And when I went home, the thing that stuck with me after that conversation was working that hard anyway. In my W-2 jobs, I was the teacher's pet. I was the overachiever. If, I was always looking for some way to like do better than it was expected. I always got really great reviews. I was always first to volunteer for those stretch assignments. So I realized I'm already hustling and I'm hustling to make someone else rich. Why don't I turn the table a little bit and give it a try and hustle to make myself rich? And, I'm really blessed to have a tremendously supportive husband. He has been supportive of my career our entire marriage. And even before, there were many, many years that I made a lot more money than he did. He went back to school when my kids were really little to finish his degree, when our kids were really little. I shouldn't say my kids. And so he was really supportive. And when I said, I think I want to try this, he looked at me and said, I don't know what took you so long. So all of these things led me to where I was when I launched. And I think 11 days from my second anniversary today. Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah, that's
Thanks.
a big milestone.
Yeah.
That is a big milestone. So thanks for sharing that, Laura. Who do you work with today at Hardin Heights Communication? And what's the problem that you're solving that maybe other firms can't do, maybe the larger firms or your competitors?
So given the choice between communicating to the leadership team, the CEO, the CHRO, or the person on the factory floor, I pick the factory floor every single time. My passion and my goal is to get the right information to the people who keep the lights on every day. And what I realize, especially in the last 2 years, but even before then, what I've realized is there is a disconnect between leadership, especially the top layers of leadership, what they're saying and what they think their employees are hearing, as well as the way they go about sharing information. There are just nuances to the further away you get from that factory floor, the more you forget how to point out and connect the dots for the people who are doing the work every single day. So that is my goal. My primary focus is internal employee communication and engagement during times of change or transition. So when there's a merger or an acquisition, when there is a big software upgrade, you're bringing in Salesforce or you're bringing in some big new system. It's funny because those big companies will say, we've got a transition program for you. Don't worry about it. We'll share it with you. Well, what they're sharing is something quite generic. They don't know your people. They don't know their timelines. They don't know the details. So you really need somebody to, again, connect those dots. So whenever there's a leadership change or, your CEO, CFO is on his way in or out or bringing someone new in or out, that's where I want to be helpful. So my focus has been lots of manufacturers, especially small and mid-size, because that's really where my value shines. And that's really where my experience is. But I'm focused on those internal people. Lots of times these, the PE people and the venture capital people and the merger and acquisition people don't even know that they need me until I have a conversation with them. And then they're like, we could really use you. And I've seen deals fall apart when we didn't have somebody like you. So that's what I try and do.
Awesome. So you're in with the C-suite level folks to try to broker communications among the folks who keep the lights on, so to speak, like you mentioned. And so you got that years of experience doing that in your previous roles. That's a great thing. It's so small to medium sized manufacturing concerns, basically.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And listen, when you make an announcement or a big change, nobody can do their best work when they're worried about whether or not they're going to have a job at the end of it, right? So there are ways to calm everyone down, keep their eye on the ball, keep them producing so that whether it's a new boss coming in or a new company coming in or a new system coming in, let's set our people up for success so they know what's coming. They know what the next right decision is and how to stay productive and engaged instead of fearful and shutting down and coming in on themselves.
That's a strong perspective there. And, as you were telling me this, I was thinking, well, you've actually lived it. You've seen both sides of it. Yes. So you definitely have empathy for the folks who are involved in the process and who are, have to feed their families and don't know what's going on. That's a powerful tool. And, perspective that you have. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
So Laura, you're running this business. You're actually, working with those manufacturers. What's the I guess the client moment or milestone that's been the most to you so far with your company?
So I have my clients have almost all come from my immediate network thus far. It's people that I've worked with in the past, like some of them in the way past. But I'm really proud because every single one of my clients has hired me twice or more. Every
Oh,
single
wow.
one of them have brought me back. And a couple of them have turned into retainer clients because why go back and have to approve another project and another budget if they can keep me on all the time and just start throwing things over the wall and throwing things over and saying, hey, I need help with this. That way it's sort of not contained to a project. So
Sure.
I'm really proud of the fact that people keep calling me back, and that has been a big boost. The other thing I love is when the engagement scores improve. When I watch employees say, "Oh, I get it now," or this round of open enrollment was a lot easier than previous rounds, or I finally knew what to expect. So it's those I call them my smile file, right? It's
Hmm.
the notes that we get from somebody outside of our project team saying, "Oh wow, it was really good what we got to see unfold here." And sometimes people don't even know that it was me, right? Because I'm working with an HR team or
Right.
another contractor or a plant manager, but I get to see and hear people appreciating the improvements. And so that makes my heart happy.
That's awesome. Yeah. When you were saying engagement, I know it's probably a term that could be loosely used across, get whatever perspective, but I was a member of an employee engagement team at my a previous employer. And,
Yeah.
we had to come up with the ways that we kind of manage up and communicate. So we had to, maybe we don't have the proper tools that we need, et cetera. And, are people hearing what we're saying and what we need? And then
Yep.
that would kind of be communicated up the chain, and potentially we'd have funding made available the next year or the next quarter. So are you doing those kind of things as well, or because I know you mentioned change, but employee
Yeah.
engagement type activities, do you do
Yeah.
like that kind of thing as well? Yeah, it's great.
I do.
Yeah.
And one of the, I think, unique offerings that I have for my clients is an engagement communication survey that they
Hmm.
can utilize to send out a simple link, a simple questionnaire. One is geared towards the C-suite and those executive leaders. One is for the people leaders, and one is for the individual contributors. And we send this out, and it's very communication focused because what a lot of people don't realize is some of the symptoms that you feel, like high turnover, low engagement, lots of rework, disengagement, people that aren't listening when you implement a new process. Those, you don't necessarily recognize those as communication issues, but they are
Right.
communication issues. And oftentimes we can fix them by improving those communication glitches and bridge that gap. So one of the things I wanted to do was offer a way to invite leaders to see very quickly what's working. Keep doing that. What's sort of working, but with a little change, we might get a big impact. And then
Mhm.
what's really broken? And how do we go about fixing those things that are broken so that we can, fix the root cause and not just treat the symptoms or throw a pizza party at it? So
Yes.
my engagement survey asks all these levels of people the questions, and I'm able to take those results, compile them fairly quickly. I promise to do it between 2 and 4 weeks from taking the survey. And I
Mhm.
don't just turn around and give the data back. I give suggestions and a bit of a plan back. So I offer a roadmap, and then, they can do it themselves. I can help them do it with their internal team if they have one, or I can do it for them. So there's, again, once you're done with that survey, once you're done with that assessment, we can be done if you feel like
Mhm.
you can handle it. So
Awesome.
it's sort of an easy on ramp for people to see what do we need to know. And it's very specifically focused on employee engagement. So it's not one of those big, Towers Watson or Korn Ferry surveys that are huge
Uh-huh.
and they dump a whole bunch of data on you and then you've got to
Yeah.
figure out your own plan. This is much more
Yeah.
targeted and a lot quicker.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. Because things can get lost in the shuffle, and you can make the surveys super extensive and people are going, what? Okay, I'm confused.
Right.
I thought we were
Right.
talking about this section, employee section, not shareholder or
Right.
customer focus. So yeah, maybe I'm giving away a little bit of my previous employers, not secrets, but just the format. But I've listened to you talk. I'm just envisioning what I've experienced for so many years, just like you
Yeah,
probably did for those years.
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Mhm.
We talked a little bit about what you're proud about. So what's been the toughest challenge for you, like the hardest thing that you've experienced when you've launched your company, and
Yeah.
kind of how do you
You know what?
overcome that?
Yeah. It's the ebb and flow of clients and money, right? I've been really fortunate that I've had a couple of really steady clients that continuously I'm able to work for them and I get paid every month. However, my first 6 months in business, I made very little money. My first full calendar year in business, which was last year, was, in my opinion, incredibly successful, but
Mhm.
I didn't land with a whole lot of extra, right? Because I made good money, but there's expenses that go along with that. And there's reinvestment in what I'm doing. And so this year I've said 2024 was the year I launched. 2025 is the year that I grew. And 2026 is the year that I'm getting it right. And by getting it right, I mean, I want 3 months of expenses and salary in the bank. And I wanted to do that by the middle of the year. And I'm on track for that. So I'm really happy about that. And I absolutely had to get ahead of paying my taxes. We had a huge tax check that we had to write at the end of 2025. And that was really painful. And so I really wanted to get ahead of that. And so what I actually did was I switched from being a regular LLC to being an S Corp. And that has
Okay.
really helped. So now I actually draw a salary and there are actually taxes taken out of that salary. And so things are a little more stable because it's really hard to just sort of wing it. It's really hard to not know, if I spend this money today, is there going to be another client tomorrow? And I'm getting better at it, but you've got to build in that safety net. And listen, if you're thinking about going off and starting your own thing, I would recommend that you get yourself in a position where you've got 3 months in the bank. I didn't have that opportunity, right? I spent the majority of 2025 digging out of a year of unemployment, right? I was unemployed for 10 months. And when I was let go, laid off from my employment way back in 2023, it was 10 days before my oldest started college. So, we had saved and we were prepared for that, but we weren't prepared for all the extra to dip into our savings and things like that. So, it was a challenging time, but we made it. And that was another thing I'm really, really proud of. We made it. We're not in a tremendous amount of debt and we're doing okay. So, I just keep trucking.
Yeah. Well, great. Glad to hear that you're, on the road to additional prosperity and you kind of turned the corner here. So that's
Yeah.
a great story, Laura. Thanks. So where do you see Hardin Heights headed next?
Yeah. So I really want this year, I wanted to add an additional 50% revenue. And that was in part that safety net I was talking about. And I'm on track for that. So I'm really planning on and aiming for that. I said at the beginning of this endeavor that by the time I hit my 5-year anniversary, I wanted to be at $250,000 in revenue. And I believe I'm going to hit that ahead of schedule. So I'm really proud of that as well. Listen, I want to keep doing what I'm good at. And I want to keep loving the clients that I'm working with. And I've been really blessed and fortunate that I've gotten to work with some really great people and I've made some wonderful connections. Tongue in cheek, I say I have a no asshole rule. Like I'm not working with you if you're a big jerk, right? And if you're, if you're not a reasonable, compassionate human being. And you don't get to make those choices when you're in a W-2 role, right? You work with who you work with. You work with the other people that the company hired. I'm grateful I get to choose. And so I want to keep working with people who want to get better and who want my help and who appreciate my expertise, and I can appreciate how I can contribute to their success. So I just want to keep doing this because I love it so much. It's so much fun.
Great. Well, Laura, let's make another shift here. The big AI question, that's the buzzword these days. How are you using AI in your own work, and where do you think companies are getting it wrong? with AI today?
So listen, I am a big proponent of AI. I think it's great that it's available. I think we have to be real careful that we don't allow it to evolve ahead of our humanity, right? I think we're getting a little cart in front of the horse in some areas. What I will say is I love using AI as a thought partner, as a collaborator, as a challenge, right? I do not use AI to write for me. I'm a writer, right?
Mhm.
But I also know not everyone's a writer. And if you're not a writer and you can use AI to draft something or get started, I think you should do it. Absolutely. It's going to empower a lot of small businesses to be more efficient and effective. I am aiming to not allow it to dip into giving back to my community and to the small business community if I can help it. I still want eventually to, hire some people to help me in my world. I already contract out some of the work that I don't want to do, right? Like like I don't do my own accounting. I have an accountant. I don't do my own video editing. I'm not good at it and it's a time suck and it takes me way too long. So I hire that out. I do subscribe to several different AI models and I use them for different things. And I think there's a way for us to find the complementary assistance to our own skills. I don't think we should be, firing 8,000 people by email so that we can invest in a data center in our neighborhood. I don't, where's the humanity in that, right? Like I would rather, upskill those 8,000 people to be better and do the important things at their jobs and then use AI to do the routine stuff that you don't need people because your career cycle is cyclical, right? If we don't have entry level positions and lower level analysts that are growing into mid-level managers and ultimately becoming the, executives leading in a strategic way, we're choking off the pipeline at the bottom. So what are we going to do when, we're talking about the silver tsunami that's coming, right? All these people, these boomers that are older and getting ready to retire, their kids may or may not want their business. They're not sure what to do about it. There's all these, exits coming. Who are you going to hand it off to if you don't have any lower level analysts that have come up the ranks? I'm not sure people smarter than me will have to come up with those answers, but I think we already see the pendulum coming back a little bit. We're hearing, we let go all these people and now they want a lot of these people back.
Yeah.
Good, right? Like let's suffer a little of that pain at the top so that we can recognize that maybe we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves.
No, I totally agree. I mean, conversation I've had with different guests and even outside of this podcast, there's always the concern that not from a corporate communications perspective, but like just their teams being concerned are they going to have jobs? Is this going to reduce my role? And even before AI, I just remember back in corporate America, it was a different tech. It was something innovative back then. It's like this, I'm dating myself, but Harvard Graphics was the precursor, I think, to PowerPoint.
Yes.
And then, PowerPoint came along and then we had this Microsoft suite and we got all these different products. Not this is a plug for Microsoft, but just the name recognition that things advance and elevate. And so I think maybe what I'm hearing is we don't want to totally replace humans, but those humans, wherever they are in the line of command, they need to be upskilled, to be trained, to be more efficient, and to do higher level thinking to push, whatever revenue, reduce expenses, et cetera. Yeah. So I totally get it. Yeah.
Look at hallucinations in AI, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when an employee lies to me, I can tell there are behaviors and body language that, they're hiding something or they're lying or they forgot to do it and they're trying to cover. You can't do that with AI. You've got to validate what it's telling you and what's actually happening. And it's like a puppy. It wants to please its owner. It tells you what you want to hear. I've interacted with AI and I'll say, fix this graphic. And it will say, okay, I did. And I say, but you didn't. Oh, you're right. I didn't. Now I'll do it. It's like, what? So again, it's not infallible. And if we recognize that, if we treat it more like an intern and less like a CEO partner, I think we'll be in better shape. but let's
Yeah.
use it to enhance and complement what we can do. And let's use it to take the routine tasks off our plate. Let's not use it to, decimate an entire workforce.
I totally get it. Yeah, that resonates for sure. Well, Laura, I wanted to ask one final question of you is if you could change 2 to 3 things about how companies handle, internal communications during change moments, what would those 2 or 3 things be?
Yeah. So I really wish that leaders who, many of them are skilled and talented and invested in their people. And they say, I've got this open door policy. I wish we would stop having an open door policy and start being in the places where our employees are. Because think about what it takes to have an open door policy with your CEO if you are a machine operator on the factory floor. You have to leave your post where you have productivity goals and you have to walk through the factory and you have to go through the front office and walk past accounting and HR and into executive row. And you have to knock on the door and maybe the CEO is there and available to talk, maybe not. And this is all if you have the courage to have that conversation, right? And then you get there and you're very nervous and you're trying to hurry and they're trying to hurry. That's not realistic. There are a handful of employees that have access to the CEO. The people on the factory floor, you can tell them till you're blue in the face that you've got an open door policy. They're not going to walk through that door. I wish the executives would make a deliberate attempt to be where their people are and talk about real things, not just how was your weekend, not just how is your husband or your wife or your kids or your pets. Have real conversations. What's working for you today? What's frustrating you today? Do you see any opportunities that we could make improvements? And if you have these conversations regularly, deliberately, and with purpose, people will then start to be comfortable talking to you. The other thing I think we forget about doing is we get the feedback, we might fix things, and we don't go back and report out on what we've done. People see things get smoothed over and they think it happens automatically. But really, someone did that. Someone made a change in the process or updated a poster or, moved equipment around or ordered an upgrade or whatever they did. Let's make sure when we hear feedback and implement that feedback, we go back and tell people what we did. So it becomes obvious that it was not passively fixed. Someone actually did something and made it better. So those are my 2 big ones. And I guess the last one is really embrace feedback as data and information and stop taking it as criticism. Feedback, I know we all have heard the cliche, feedback is a gift, but it really is. And feedback is far more telling than we allow it to be because we're busy being defensive. We're busy explaining why we haven't already done that or why we can't do it. And we can't implement every suggestion. And sometimes, there are bad ideas. There are things that don't make any sense. And take the time to explain some of that to the people who might not understand the obstacles or the barriers to those solutions without being defensive.
So the themes I hear is if there should be a no door policy and then
Yes.
check your ego at the door.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I talked to a CEO, someone in my extended family who had the very same thing is that he doesn't allow the egos at the door and there's a whole chemistry. It's more in the poultry industry in the Midwest there close to you. But yeah, he definitely has told me on numerous occasions that we just won't stand for it. Whether it's he has sons who are in various roles in the business now, but there could be even fighting or discussions there about egos and things like that, and it doesn't even have to do anything with the survey, right? It's just kind of the nature of the beast when people get into power or seek power. Sometimes they're the most sensitive ones that can't take the heat. So yeah, great insight. Yeah, thank you, Laura. Well, this has been a very great, engaging conversation. I really appreciate you, jumping on with me today. I just want to ask you one last thing is if folks wanted to know more about your company and about you personally, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah. So I think the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. Laura Harden-Heights. So you can find me there and follow along because I post every weekday, usually, insights, tips, thoughts around communication. And then from there, they can link over to my website, hardenheightscoms.com. And that's where you'll find a little more about me, a little bit more about the services, and all kinds of ways to contact me, whether it's email or online or, booking a call, a discovery call. My first consultation with anybody is always free. So if anybody wants to reach out and connect, I'm more than happy to have a conversation about, how we might collaborate and or just how we might be connected, right? I love meeting new people and getting to know people in the different industries and seeing how we can bounce ideas off each other.
Great. Well, again, Laura, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you today, and look forward to seeing what's on the horizon for your company. And I just want to thank you again for being our guest, and we'll see you guys around next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.